Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my humble 40k channel. Today I am going to talk about basing your model instead of my usual model tutorial per the request of one of the commenters in a previous video. I have a list of what was used in this video down below, but ultimately it will be up to you to decide what kind of base you're looking for, as this varies wildly. Before you start to base your model, there are two main things to ask yourself. First, what are you looking to achieve with your basing? If you're looking to push the absolute limits of your abilities for a painting competition, then I'll be blunt, this video isn't for you. I am by no means a golden demon painter, nor am I also going to lie to you and say that my abilities approach, say, what the Den of Imagination can do. Such bases can take as much time as the model itself, and in a painting competition, the base can set you apart from the rest. However, if you are like me and just looking for something simple so you have a base, that's a different story. My philosophy in regards to basing is simple. First, it needs to be quick, as I don't look forward to adding significantly more time to each individual model. This is especially true for horde armies, as you might have dozens of these models that you have to base. Second, the base needs to be plain, as I don't want the base to detract from the model. When people look at the model, you want their eyes to focus on the actual model, not where it's standing. Lastly, application of the base needs to be easily consistent. Your army is going to most likely have many models with bases on them. You can have some minor variation, but overall they should all look like they're on the same battlefield together, as it enhances the overall visual appeal of your entire army on the tabletop. Once you've settled on the first question, you need to decide on the second question. Do you want to complete your base before or after the model is glued on? Now, if your basing is elaborate, probably best to complete it before the model is actually attached. However, if you're looking for something very simple, then you can do the base after the model is glued on. Basically, if the model has good clearance where you can get in there and work at the base with a brush, then that's, for all intents and purposes, good enough. I will say this, however, is that if you glue the model onto the base after it's finished, it will look like your model is on top of the ground, whereas otherwise, it's going to look a little bit like it's in the ground. So depending on the look that you're going for, then, plan accordingly. For this video, I'll show you how to do a base without a model on it, but you can have a model on it should you like, if you have the clearance to work. First, I lay down some PVA glue. In the States, this is basically Elmer's glue. Put some on the base and use an old brush or one you don't care about and spread it around so that way the entire base is covered in a thin layer. Yes, it's white. Don't worry, it's going to dry clear. Once you have the glue spread out, you want to dunk whatever material you're using to make up the ground. This is commonly sand or maybe small rocks. In my case, I'm using Black Battleground by Army Painter. If your base is too big to fit in a little box that it comes in, which is, for example, like what I'm using right now, I recommend getting a paper plate to set your model on and then pour the material on. In either case, shake the excess off and let the glue fully dry. If you use the plate, then you can then use that to put the excess material back into the box. At this stage, while the glue is drying, you can add some additional features that you plan to actually paint. Now, in this example, I also put down some of Army Painter's battlefield rocks with super glue. Not many, mind you, but a spot or two here or there so that way it's not entirely flat. The larger your model, and more specifically, the larger the base, the more important that you're going to have at least some features on the base so that way it's not entirely flat. Because if you have something big like an Imperial Knight, an entirely flat base is a little bit too boring. Once the glue is dry and you're finished with adding things that will be painted, you want to paint everything the base color. Now, I recommend picking a color that will contrast heavily with your finished model. A dark angel on a grass base, for example, doesn't really work well, but having it on a black base or tan base works wonders. In my case, I want everything to be a dark rock, so everything gets painted Vallejo Black. This also will help lock in the material once the paint dries, sealing it in place. I don't even bother to water down the paint for this step. Once the paint is dry, for this example, I hit the entire thing with a dry brush of Tyrant Skull from Citidel. This gives it a bit of brightness to the entire base, but it also doesn't really get rid of the entire black, nor the texture of the material. Finally, I use Administratum Grey to lightly dry brush the rocks. It is a very light dry brush, partially because I don't want to smother the rock entirely in gray, basically hitting the raised edges, but I also don't want to snap the rock off. Even in this example, some of the rocks do actually snap off. At this point, at least for me, the job is essentially done. If you want, you can add a bit of grass to help with a little bit extra contrast. I use Army Painter's Highland Tuft for this one, just to see what it would do. You add a little bit of super glue on the bottom of it, and then you stick it down wherever you need it. And that's it. That's this video's simple basing tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. A rundown of what was used will be in the description in case you missed it. See you next video.